by shot. Let's look at Karina Ambarcumova here with the white pieces taking on Polina Shuvlova with black. And this position here, you have pawn on e5. You have space for your bishop. This bishop on c8 does not have much space. So it looks like a French defense, but it's a Caro-Kann. And similar themes here. The bishop on c8, now on d7, not the best piece in the world. White is going to start pushing her pieces towards the king side. She can play f4, but I like that she hasn't committed to that move because you never know what you want to do with this bishop. Perhaps the bishop wants to go to f4. So queen h5, and now if g6, this bishop will want to go onto the h6 square. There will be holes in black's position on the dark squares. You have the Swiss cheese formation. Hey everybody, good to see you. Thanks so much for tuning into this. It's an amazing event. I'm having so much fun covering it. The Women's Speeches Championship qualifiers. So it's going to be a very long next month, really, with all these events in the Women's Speeches Championship. So, you know, stay on the edge of your seat, but maybe not on the edge just yet because eventually you'll get a little tired and fall off. But it's a lot of fun, and I am enjoying it. Hope you do as well. So d4 was played to gain black some space. I mentioned this bishop on d7. Now if that bishop gets to c6, there's actually an open diagonal. So typically, white doesn't want to allow a sort of d4 move. You want to keep this pawn on d5 so the bishop can't get out. And here, once this d4 move is happened, the bishop will become better. But at the same time, white is playing on the king side. So there are some weak squares, maybe bishop h6 now. But you ask yourself, what are you really threatening? And the answer is nothing concrete. So rook d1 is smart, trying to dislodge this queen because there's a pin down the d file. If you move the knight out the way, knight f5, maybe there's bishop to b5 with a pin on this piece. I think that actually black can sacrifice the queen for a minor piece and a rook. There are plenty of positions where that's a good idea, especially with these split pawns on the queen side. Right, the split pawns over here, not looking their best, hard to protect. So that's why you have these isolated pawns. You get frustrated because a pawn's best friend is another pawn. Right? This pawn comes to b6, the pawn a7 protects it. You're never too worried about it. But now I'm permanently worried about my queen side. So what about bishop takes, knight takes e5? Then there's, okay, so bishop takes, knight e5, bishop f4, pinning here, hitting this. I have to go f6, and I don't really want to play f6, but it does hold the position together for now. So if she feels confident that taking that pawn doesn't result in some sort of checkmate, then she goes for it. The issue is, after knight e5, instead of bishop f4, pinning, you bishop f6, hitting the knight, threatening queen h6, threatening queen g7, checkmate. So that's the real downside here. Is I get it, you want to steal the pawn in the center, but you're actually helping white launch an attack. Ooh, h5 is so risky. Knight takes f7 is on the agenda here. Now this looks problematic. I think you have to take this knight on g5. Otherwise, knight takes f7 happens. Okay, knight takes e6. This looks too dangerous, but maybe she can somehow get away with this. I'm not really believing it. Knight takes f7 also. I mean, knight f7, you have to take the rook, bishop g6, your king's under attack, rook g7, bishop h6. I'm just going for you. You actually cannot do anything of note because if you go h4, I check you and take your rook. You'd have to bishop. Oop. Bishop f7 also worked there, but I was going back to the live board here. Rook f8. You can take either pawn. It looks good. Wait, there might be a trick though. Maybe I blundered. Knight e6. Aha. So knight e6, bishop e6, bishop takes g6. There might be h4, kicking my queen off of the very important g file. So knight takes e6 would not have worked out. She says bishop e4. This move still looks pretty good to me. I just feel like the attack. I just have faith in the attack. It feels like you can just blast the king open and go for checkmate. Bishop takes g6 now. So she stopped on e4 to take on g6. Now pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, check here, and then take with check. So you see all of black's pawns in front of her king. So you want to throw in this check on h6 to bring the king back to g8 so that when you take here, it's another check. Typically, that's a good strategy. And it may not be entirely necessary, but you just want to keep those captures with check in mind. So knight takes e6, queen g6 check, of course. Only move. I guess she was considering if she wants to take here, but then the knight would take back to protect the bishop. I was wondering why she would take some time. And now she takes... Oh, because of king here, you have bishop h6 check going for mate. And stealing that pawn is going to hurt. And actually, that one tempo, so she played bishop e4, which allowed rook to d8. She regrets that now. Because if this rook were on c8, there would be a rook lift coming for a checkmate. So we can look at that after this game concludes, but it feels like maybe it won't impact her in this particular game, but that was probably a mistake. Just not taking right away. So she's got to take this, right? And how many pawns? She has 4 pawns for a piece. It's not game over because black actually, if black fends off the attack, the immediate attack, those queenside pawns for white are really weak. So if you can get a queen trade to happen, then the knight that you're up, even though it's for 4 pawns, can actually make his presence felt. Okay, take on e6 with check. Good decision. Bishop h6, watch out. Queen g6 is check, and this rook is a problem. And if you ever take on d... Wait, can you take on e5? No, you have to take on d1 first. But rook d1, their mate is queen g6 check first, potentially. And then take back here. So I think this is also problematic. I think bishop f8, kind of an only move. Queen g6. You have to go rook g7, take it. Take again. And then, ooh, trading queens and playing rook d7 was winning. Now it's a little less winning, but take here. She doesn't want to trade queens. She's somehow concerned about this queenless position. Take the queen. Oh, that's actually really good too. But if she traded queens, she would play rook d7 at the end there, and the position would be winning. So Vaishali, she wins again. And just so everybody knows, there will be 2 breaks during this event. After round 5 and after round 10. It gives the players a chance to breathe after some 5 and 10 splits games. Also gives the fair play team an opportunity to do their work to make sure everything is going smoothly, which it is. Yesterday was very smooth, but it just gives everybody a chance to relax and reset. So knight c6, this bishop, you want to get after this bishop. h3 was important so that the king has some space, so you won't get back when he checkmated. And now queen f7. The one thing I don't want to allow is queen c1, queen f4, because with my king on h2, that would be an issue. She plays g3. Queen f7 also stopped that plan, but this is a nice, safe way to do so. Queen f7 here hits the bishop, threads queen h7, checkmate. Oh, hanging on by a thread. Just can you take on b7? She does. Knight e5. You have to play for some kind of attack. Queen c6. Wait. Oh no, she blundered the rook. She's fortunate that she has so many pieces that it's not. Oh, queen e4 check here. I think queen e4 check would be a decent move, but she's going to give a bunch of checks. Queen e5. Queen e4. Play queen e4. Ooh, trading the queens would help you. So she might play queen b3 or something if she doesn't see anything better. I think this game is going to end in a draw. This has been a fascinating game. Wow. Wow, she unfortunately blundered the rook on b7. Happens in time trouble. But earlier in this game, I actually just want to point out that moment one more time because it is instructive. So she went bishop to e4 first, but her plan was to take on g6. So if we just change the position one little bit here, with queen g6 here, let's say you do the same exact thing as she did in the game. Here, check, here, takes. The king has to come here. Now I have rook to d3, which I didn't have when the rook was on d8. So she actually brought her opponent's rook into a better defensive position. And if she had this position, the king is just getting pretty much checkmated here. And you can do it by force. You can check back here just to force the king to the side and then play rook d3 and go for this kind of checkmate. I mean, it's just devastating. So she helped her opponent out unintentionally, obviously, by stopping the bishop first, and that was allowed black to have an additional resource to help. We'll know that we're going to see those top 2. So actually, it's kind of ironic. Like, you want to see the best players, but we know that they're going to make it, it seems like. So I almost want to not watch the top game, so if we can see some of these players, let's say in 10th, 11th, 12th place, see if they'll play. But out of respect for the players who are doing the best, I'll stay on this game for a bit. If I'm Karina with the black pieces, I just want to, I think, make a draw. Although there will be a lot of people who can catch up. No, this is a tough call here. If she controls her own destiny, she's in second place. But trying to figure out what score you need to qualify, that's a nightmare. So go Alina, I see. Alina's in 4th place there, tied for 3rd. She's now playing against Valentina Gunina. And knight d7, this is good play. f4, this kind of setup here, so many pieces defending the e5 square. But you give permanent control over a square like e4, but the black knight isn't going there while the white knight can take it. So bishop to b7 or bishop to a6. Bishop a6 is likely going to happen. The a5 has been played. Then queen e2 makes sense. But actually a5 is useful for many reasons. It can allow a bishop trade. It also helps get a head start on a queenside push. With like c4, b5, e4, all the stuff. And bishop a6, actually the white bishop can just retreat. So it's not the end of the world anyway. Here we have two knights going after the f7 pawn, but the rook on b7 covers the square. And now h6 is coming? I think white is just much worse. h6 played. Alright, here we go. Take on... You couldn't take on g6. The rook would just go back to the queen side. Now, white's worse here. Bishop b4. Or a4, a3. That's actually smart. That's really smart. a3, and then you want to get your knight to score like c3. King e7. And I just need to attack this. Knight c3 now. No, you walked into rook a6 is just bishop e7. So just take here and take on a2. Unfortunately for white, this is now just an outside pass pawn that you're going to have to deal with. And you're not going to be able to very successfully. Knight f6. Okay, this makes sense. Bring the king up. Then play knight f6. The bishop on e7 will permanently protect this pawn. Knight f6. No, king g7 is wrong. But it's fine. I think the idea of knight f6 is just not coming through. So wait, this is pretty annoying. With king f7, bishop f8. Here's bishop f8 now. And 6 seconds for white. Even look at the clock. 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.3 seconds. Knight f6. I just think she's not seeing this move. She brings knight to c3, which is fine. But knight to d1 maybe? Okay, bring the knight to f6. Please. Win the h5 pawn. Get your second outside pass pawn. Knight c4. Hitting this pawn, but then rook g3. Keep the king away. King f6 you can play. No, okay, she finally found knight f5. She puts her knight in g7. She's doing the same thing. Oh no, rook g8. Oh, rook g8 was a good move. Just a second ago, there was pieces like this. Rook g8 would have won one of them. Now it's too late. Oh, this pawn though. Oh gosh. a2. Play a2. But you have nothing. You can't accomplish anything. Bishop a3 check, king a1. And now the king's on a1. You actually can't get another check. You need your king. Rush this king here. I don't know if it works, but yeah, you're not on time. Oh my gosh, what a turnaround here. It's still not over. Knight d1. Hit this pawn. Take this pawn. Oh gosh, that's an important pawn. Knight f5. Now black's winning again. King f7. Bishop f4. Bishop e3. Okay, this works too. Bishop g7. Take on d4. h6. Bishop h8. h7. Oh, bishop h8 was probably bad. Knight f5 now. Now you had to go h7. Tough. This is really tough to play with no time on your clock. Now it's winning for black. Knight f5, good. The bishop will move. King will go back to f6 probably. Oh, that's no. Oh, she's plenty of time on her clock. She gave away her bishop with plenty of time on the clock. Bring the knight to c6. Try to play for a win here. You can't lose with your knight against the rook. They made a draw. That game was just bonkers. So here, where am I looking? So from the very start of this, when this knight was here, you played knight f6, you win the h5 pawn. And then you just win the game with your other outside pawn. But what all this happened, which was craziness. Wait, I just skipped the moment again. Here, rook g8 would have won the game because you have two minor pieces on the same rank, and you can't protect them. But what happened was still pretty nuts. And White now has stolen his pawn. The problem is you can't do anything. You can't dislodge the king from here. So you want to, and, well, we're getting to the last round, so I can't even... This game here between Karina Ambarcumova taking on Mugzol Termunk, and this position is kind of crazy over here with these pawns on c5 and d5. This pawn on c5 is under attack, but the knight on d7 protects it. You may want to play bishop b5 in the next move if you get the chance. You're kicking this knight, and then this pawn on c5 is under attack. And here you see that there's also this pawn a5 needing the rook's defense. So there are some opportunities really for both here. And I'll bring up Karina on camera. She's very focused here. This pawn on c5 still defended by this knight on d7. This knight on d7 is kind of a hero. These minor pieces are really doing a good job of defending these pawns, even though they look like they're a bit loose. And this queen, I'm looking at the queen on c6, not many moves of safety. Queen d6, queen a6, queen e7, that takes away d6 from you. It also puts another defender on c5. So queen c7, this queen can run back to a square like g3 if it's attacked. It also is threatening the pawn a5. So a4, good move by black here. Just trying to challenge this pawn structure. If you take, I take with my rook. Your pawn a2 is weak. Also, if your pawn b3 has to capture, now my pawn on c5, I'm going to be able to go c4 without being captured. So I'm trying to figure out knight e5. Uh-oh. Knight e5, this knight needs to stay here, defend this rook. And knight c6 is another threat, hitting the queen and hitting the rook another time. And if I take on d7, your d5 pawn falls. So this is actually a really tough tactical spot here. And queen d8 takes on d7. Oh, bishop b5 first. That's such a good move. Now you're going to take on d7, take on d5 once the bishop takes on d7, and down goes a rook. So it looks like Karina Ambarcumova is taking this first game. If I am playing with the black pieces here, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Rook a8 protects the rook, but bishop d7, rook takes d5. Thank you for your free pawn here. And it's not like black had any good choice to speak of, but it's just a very loose position. These hanging pawns, they're not protecting each other. Anytime you push one of them, if you were able to, then the square d4 becomes under white's control. So having the hanging pawn structure is quite difficult to handle, and I think just taking this on d7 is a good choice, but she's thinking here. She's trying to think about which endgame she wants, most likely. I really like the capture, though. And it's looking good for Karina. So let me look at, okay, this other game, she takes with on d7 with the knight, which means her bishop's under attack. Rook takes c5. We're going to get into a pawn-up rook endgame, but if we get there, that's actually good drawing chances for black. Rook n4 versus rook n3 is a theoretical draw. So I'm going to take us away from here. Unfortunately for those two Russian players, they were eliminated. Karina Ambarcumova still has a chance here, waiting for that game to take place. And 5 minutes for white, 4 minutes for black. Draw odds. And let's see. So just... I'm going to try to see what's going on here. So getting rid of some of the players from the call because they've been eliminated, and going through, Karina Ambarcumova will have white in the game. So she will take the white pieces. That means that Mugzol Termunk will have draw odds. It's so hard to know which is better. I think a lot of the top players prefer to have black in those kind of games, but the extra minute is so valuable. It really is hard to evaluate the trade-off because players have different styles, and if you feel like you're very solid and you rarely lose, then you probably want to take the black pieces. But if you feel like you would have good chances to win because you're an aggressive player and you have sharp openings that are tailor-made just for a blitz game, then you might take white, saying, I have the extra time. So we have liftoff here. We have this position now opening. There is Mugzol Termunk. We have her on screen. It must be pretty late where she's playing from, and it's quite dark. So she castles, playing quickly so far in the opening. And what's going on here? So b6, standard. Try to get bishop to b7. Oftentimes you... Ooh, knight b5. Going for c7. C takes d, knight takes d5. At the very least protects c7. And now the knight's kicked back. So the knight on a6 is a bit awkwardly placed, but it also helped black develop because now rook c8 and c5 is what I would immediately do. So it seems like she wasn't phased at all by this odd knight jump. Perhaps it is backfiring for Ambarцумова because her position looks good in the sense that it looks like any sort of traditional queen's pawn game, but it does feel like she's down like a couple tempi. And that's what happens when you go knight to b5 back to c3. Black has fully developed. All pieces are out. Black has castled. White hasn't moved the bishop out. But the reason why I would say white is still completely fine and maybe has preferable chances, and it's not the clock, because the clock is about to be close to equal, it's that white has more space. And you may put this bishop on f3, so that if c5, you can't take on c4. With this bishop hanging behind it. So there's a lot of tension here. Good control of the center, but time, it's about to even in time. Mungzil playing so quickly. Wow. She's ready for this. And what is working? H3, calm move, c5 played in 1 second. So white spent 22 seconds, black moved in 1 second. And now you have to win with white, and you're down on the clock. I would take on here, take on c4, good move. Now this knight's coming to d5. And then this rook is going to be very happy. So knight d5 for sure. h6 first. I think knight to d5. But is there some tactics? No, I don't see any tactics. Knight e8. Protecting the knight f6, but that feels a bit too passive for my liking. She's just trying to protect f6, got her queen out the way. Bishop takes a3 is no longer a threat because of knight b5. So I'll show that, knight to b5, hitting the queen, hitting the bishop. And if you took on a3, the knight would have been lost. Okay, the bishop drops back to g3. The bishop drops. Now I'm starting to like white's position again. Actually, where's this queen going? This queen is really in harm's way. I would go rook fe1 and go knight takes f7. This is a problem. Oh, okay, look at this move. I don't know if it actually works, but takes, check, king f8. It feels so close. I need my bishop on a2. She does it. She's going to put bishop g6 in there. What am I talking about? But I thought, no. Here, bishop g6. I have the square covered, at least, so I can play queen to d7. I'm not sure this is going to work out the way she wants it to. She has to take on f7. If black doesn't take on f7, you're just hopeless. So my point is that either you're going to lose right away or you're going to end up losing anyway. So you might as well just take the knight on f7 and do it much more quickly than 30 seconds. So king f8. So queen d7 played. Yeah, I don't know. This knight is very strong here as a defender. I don't see it. Bishop takes d6. I can just take on e6 to trade queens, or take on d6 back, and my queen protects f7. So she went for the knight sack. Black said, okay, it's happening. Let me compose myself. And now knight c4. This queen is not very helpful anymore. It's closed off thanks to the rook and knight coordinating here. And if you give black a couple more moves, I'm thinking knight to d5, bishop f6, and get everything out of dodge. So knight d5 here. Then there may be some kind of rook. I do have to be careful about a rook lift. And queen c6, that threatens a little checkmate on g2. Is d5 possible? I'm looking for it. d5, knight takes d5. Yeah, probably black gets away with it. So if knight d5... Oh, but there might be some knight takes d5, and then bishop takes g7, but this bishop on g6 is hanging. And if you go bishop e4, I have knight takes c3, hitting the queen. Wait, but bishop e4 takes. This knight, I think, is trapped out here, but this bishop's under attack. It's a complicated position. Bishop e4, good move. Good move. And you played in 18 seconds. Would have liked to play it more quickly, but bishop takes... She took on c3, but rook takes d1 now. No, this unfortunately turned south very quickly. Rook takes e1, And after rook d6, what's the material count? Black has 2 rooks. Oh! Wait. This rook was hanging. But she didn't take it right away. Uh-oh. I totally forgot that the bishop can move backwards. That's on me. But if we look at this position now, it's a rook and bishop and knight against a queen. Rook f6. And if f4, you take on b4 and then go rook to d6. Yeah, this is actually still very bad for white. So even though the rook on e1 was lost... Oh, you can't go king f1 because knight to d2. Now this is a problem. This is a big problem. And with draw odds, you don't even need to win this game, but it looks like black is just winning. I guess g4 can be played. Wait, doesn't that walk into checkmate? Check and mate. Checkmate. Wow. So a win there for Mungsil Turmung. She moves on to the semifinals. That was a pretty hectic game, but ever since knight takes f7, I know I recommended the move, or I said it's possible. The move happened, and then queen takes d6, and you play for checkmate. But once this queen just simply slid to d7, this square is under control. I would love to trade queens. And then around here, I mean, bishop e4, knight takes c3, bishop takes c6. That was the move to play. Because after knight takes a2, bishop takes b7, this rook is in trouble. And if we trade rooks here and trade some more, well, then once we get to here, I have bishop to d5 kind of ideas. Oh, my bishop's hanging on e5, so I can't do that. Yeah, just not quite there. So we're about to get the semi-finals. Let me transition here. Okay. So we have this matchup's going. It's going to be Mungsil versus Vaishali. And it is going to be Petrop versus the #1 overall player, Wen Pham. So let me make sure I have all the players on follow. FH2411 username. Cool. So I have them followed. Crazy, right? Crazy. Now we just have the semifinals matchup, but it's really the final because it's just 2 different matches. The winner of each match qualifies